The twin suns of Arcturus Prime burned brightly over the metallic spires of the trading city. It was a place where the galaxy's richest and most dangerous gathered to buy and sell anything imaginable. Merchants shouted, ships landed in steady rhythm, and strange alien creatures carried goods through crowded streets. Among the endless markets stood the most famous of all, the Grand Auction Hall. Inside that hall, cages lined the walls. Warriors from fallen clans, beasts from unknown worlds, and relics of lost civilizations were displayed for wealthy buyers. The air smelled of metal, sweat, and greed. Every seat was filled with traders, mercenaries, and nobles waiting to claim a prize. One cage at the far end drew the most attention. Inside stood a tall woman, her figure strong and commanding. Her skin was bronzed from battles fought under countless suns, and her eyes carried both fire and sorrow. She was Kalara, once a champion among the Amazons of Vera. Now she was silent, her wrists bound with shimmering restraints, her pride wounded deeper than any scar. The auctioneer's voice boomed across the hall. "Behold the warrior of the Veran Amazons, stronger than a dozen soldiers trained in blade and shield since birth. A weapon, a guardian, a commander, yours if you can afford her." Bidding began instantly. Voices shouted numbers, credits rising higher and higher. Some sought her for personal armies, others for gladiator arenas, and some only for the glory of owning what others could not. Kalara listened, her jaw tight. She told herself she would never bow, no matter who claimed her. Among the crowd sat a quiet figure who did not join the noise. He was smaller than the towering aliens beside him, dressed in plain travel clothes. His hair was dark, his face calm, and his eyes studied the stage not with hunger but with thought. He was Ethan Hale, a trader from Earth, though very few in the galaxy even recognized the name of his homeworld. As Kalara's gaze swept over the bidders, she noticed him. Unlike the others, he did not grin or sneer. He simply sat hands folded, waiting. It puzzled her. Why would such a fragile creature come to a place like this? The auctioneer raised his hands. "We have an offer of 50,000 credits. Do I hear more?" A noble in golden robes shouted, 60! A warlord growled, 70! The numbers climbed, the crowd growing louder. Kalara closed her eyes. It did not matter who won. She would endure as she always had. Then, cutting through the chaos, came a calm voice. 100,000. The hall fell silent. Heads turned toward the sound. It was Ethan, standing now, his voice steady but not boastful. His eyes never left the auctioneer. The noble laughed. "You? You don't even wear the mark of a house. How could you pay such a price?" Ethan lifted a small device, a trade chip glowing with proof of funds. The auctioneer's eyes widened. It was no trick, the credits were real. "Sold," the auctioneer declared. To the Earthling, whispers rippled through the crowd. Some laughed, others muttered in disbelief. A human buying an Amazon? Impossible. Yet the deal was done. Guards released Kalara's restraints and guided her toward her new owner. She walked proudly, refusing to show weakness, though inside her chest a storm raged. Why would such a small, strange being spend a fortune on her? What did he plan to do? When she reached him, she straightened to her full height, towering over him. "If you think I will bow, you are mistaken," she said coldly. Ethan looked up at her, unshaken. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "I didn't buy you to bow. I bought your freedom. Walk with me, not behind me." The word struck her harder than any blade. Freedom? She searched his face for mockery, but found only sincerity. She did not answer. She could not. They left the hall together. Behind them, laughter and gossip echoed. Some called Ethan a fool. Others whispered he must have secret plans. But Kalara's thoughts were louder than all of them. Outside, the sky of Arcturus Prime stretched wide and burning, ships rising like arrows of light. Ethan led the way toward a small freighter parked at the edge of the landing docks. It was nothing like the grand warships Kalara had seen in her life. Its hull was worn, patched in places, but alive with the hum of steady engines. "This is the Odyssey Dawn," Ethan said. "It's not much, but it flies." Kalara studied the vessel. It was humble, but in its own way proud, much like its captain. Inside, the ship was simple. A few seats in the cockpit, a narrow hallway, a storage bay, and 2 small quarters. Ethan motioned toward one of them. "That one's yours if you want it." "No locks, no chains," Kalara frowned. "Why are you doing this? You could have bought anything, anyone. Why waste so much on me?" Ethan shrugged lightly, though his eyes softened. "Because no one deserves to live in a cage, not you. Not anyone. For a moment, Kalara had no words. She had been traded like a prize, treated as less than a person. Yet this fragile earthling spoke to her as though she were more than a weapon. It unsettled her. Later that night, as the ship drifted away from Arcturus Prime, Kalara sat alone in her quarters. She stared at her reflection in the small metal mirror fixed to the wall. A warrior once free, now bound again, but in a way that felt strangely different. Ethan had not given her orders. He had not spoken of battles or glory. He had simply offered her freedom, and that freedom felt heavier than chains because she did not know what to do with it. Was he a fool? Or was there something hidden in his calm eyes, some strength she could not yet see? She did not trust him, not yet. But for the first time since her capture, Kalara felt something she thought had been buried forever: curiosity. The stars stretched endlessly outside the window, and with them stretched her destiny. For Kalara of the Amazons, the path had always been written in battle. But now, with an earthling beside her, that path was beginning to change. And though she did not yet admit it, part of her wanted to see where it would lead. The freighter Odyssey Dawn drifted through the quiet lanes of space, its engines humming steadily. To Kalara, the sound was strange. She was used to the roaring battle drums of her people, the clash of metal and the voices of warriors chanting before combat. Here there was only calm, too calm. She walked through the narrow halls of the ship, her tall frame nearly brushing the ceiling. Every corner spoke of human simplicity: bare metal walls, wires tucked away neatly, and shelves filled with small objects that meant nothing to her. Ethan Hale, the earthling, moved about with ease, checking controls, brewing something in a small pot, humming softly to himself. Kalara's eyes narrowed. He was unlike any commander she had ever followed. No arrogance, no hunger for power. He treated the ship as home, not a war tool. "What is that smell?" she asked finally, her deep voice carrying both suspicion and curiosity. Ethan looked up, smiling. "Coffee, a drink from Earth, helps me stay awake." She frowned. "It smells bitter?" "Maybe. But it reminds me of home," he said, pouring the dark liquid into a small cup. He took a slow sip, then offered another cup to her. "Try it." Kalara hesitated. She was a warrior, not afraid of poisons or traps. Still, something about his calm eyes told her this was no trick. She accepted the cup, sniffed it, then took a sip. Her face twisted instantly. "It tastes worse than it smells." Ethan laughed lightly, not insulted at all. "Yeah, it's an acquired taste." Kalara set the cup down firmly. "Humans drink this willingly?" "Every day," he replied with a grin. "It keeps us going." She studied him, puzzled again. He had spent a fortune to free her, yet lived in this small ship, drinking bitter water, reading strange old books in the evenings. He had no guards, no slaves, no power worth boasting about. And yet, he was not weak. She could see it in the way he carried himself, calm and steady, as if strength was not measured by muscle but by something else. A few days later, they stopped at a mining outpost on the edge of a barren moon. The place was little more than a collection of steel towers and dust. Ethan needed supplies, fuel cells, spare parts, and trade goods. As they entered the market square, Kalara's presence drew stares. She was taller than most beings there, her movements sharp and proud. Whispers followed them. An Amazon walking beside a human? Some thought it a joke, others a mystery. Ethan ignored the looks and bartered with the merchants. His voice was polite but firm, his words chosen carefully. Kalara stood beside him, arms crossed, watching. She noticed how he used knowledge, not force, to win deals. He compared prices, reminded sellers of their past trades, and even joked lightly to ease tension. To Kalara, it was strange. Among her people, trade was simple. Strength decided value. Here, this earthling wove words like weapons, and somehow he always came out ahead. As they carried supplies back toward the ship, Kalara finally asked, "Why do you not command others to carry these for you? You bought me, yet you give me no task." Ethan looked at her with a raised brow. "Because I didn't buy you to carry boxes. You're free to help if you want, but I won't force you." Her jaw tightened. Freedom. Again, that word. It both angered and confused her. She was trained for duty, for orders. Without them, what was she supposed to be? Before she could reply, a shout rang out across the dusty square. Armed raiders burst from the shadows, blasters raised, their leader snarling. "Drop the cargo," one shouted. "The freighter is ours." Merchants screamed and scattered. Kaelara's instincts flared. Battle at last. She reached for a weapon, but Ethan raised a hand. "Wait," he whispered. The raiders surrounded them, sneering at the sight of Ethan. "A human traitor? Easy prey. Hand over the supplies, little man, and maybe we'll let you crawl away." Kaelara stepped forward, eyes blazing. "Touch him and you face me." The raiders laughed. "An Amazon in chains? You serve him?" She said nothing, but her stance told them enough. Ethan, however, did not reach for a weapon. He spoke calmly. "You're making a mistake. The mining outpost is protected. If you spill blood here, the overseers will hunt you to the edges of the system." The leader spat. "We'll be gone before they even know." "Maybe," Ethan said softly. "But I've already signaled the outpost guards." He tapped a small device on his wrist. "They'll be here in 3 minutes. Long enough for you to make a choice. Leave now or face both me and them." The raiders hesitated. Some glanced around nervously. Kaelara's eyes widened slightly. She had not even seen him signal anyone. He had planned this, prepared for danger before it even came. "Clever," the leader growled. "You bluff." "Try me," Ethan said, his calm gaze unshaken. For a tense moment, silence hung heavy. Then, muttering curses, the raiders backed away, vanishing into the shadows. Kaelara turned to Ethan, still gripping her weapon. "You let them go? We could have crushed them." "Maybe," he admitted. "But sometimes fighting isn't the smartest way. Letting them walk saves lives and keeps us out of bigger trouble." She stared at him, trying to understand. In her culture, honor was won by combat, by proving strength. Yet here was this fragile human, defying raiders not with blades but with patience and wit. And it worked. That night, back aboard the Odyssey Dawn, Kaelara sat silently in the mess hall, turning his words over in her mind. Ethan sat across from her, sipping his bitter coffee again as though nothing unusual had happened. "You are strange," she said finally. "Thanks," he replied with a smile. "I mean it. You have no army, no strength like mine, and yet you are not afraid. You could have died today, yet you stood as if the galaxy itself would bend to your words." Ethan leaned back. "I've learned something in my travels. Brute force isn't the only kind of power. Sometimes courage is standing still when others expect you to run. Sometimes it's finding another way, when the obvious way only leads to blood." Kaelara folded her arms. "Among my people, strength is the only path to respect." "And are you happy with that path?" Ethan asked quietly. She froze, caught off guard. No one had ever asked her that. Happiness? To Amazons, duty was enough. But deep inside, buried beneath pride and scars, a small part of her wondered the same question. She looked away. "You speak like a philosopher, not a warrior." "Maybe," Ethan said. "But philosophers live longer." For the first time, Kaelara almost laughed. Almost. Days passed. Kaelara began to watch Ethan more closely. She saw how he treated others with respect, never mocking, never cruel. She saw how he faced danger with calm, using his mind instead of his fists. And though she still believed him fragile, she could not deny he was clever. Clever and strangely brave. But more than that, he treated her not as a tool but as a person. He gave her choice. And that, to Kaelara, was more unsettling than any battle. One evening, as the stars stretched endless beyond the viewport, she found herself standing beside him in the cockpit. "You are not like others," she said softly. He glanced at her. "Neither are you." For a moment their eyes met, her fire against his calm. And though she would not admit it, a spark of respect had already begun to grow. The Odyssey Dawn drifted through the calm stretch of stars, its path steady toward a new trade hub. The hum of its engines was constant, almost soothing. But inside Kaelara's mind there was no calm. She sat in her quarters, staring at the metal walls, trying to push away the thoughts that haunted her. It had been many days since Ethan Hale freed her from the auction on Arcturus Prime. Each day she saw more of his strange ways, his quiet routines, his patience, his habit of reading to himself when the ship was silent. Each day she also saw his courage, not born of muscle but of will, and each day her heart grew heavier. At last, one night, when the stars outside glowed like rivers of light, she stepped into the cockpit where Ethan sat at the controls. He glanced at her with his usual calm smile. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "I need to speak," Kaelara replied, her voice lower than usual. He leaned back in his chair, giving her his full attention. Go ahead, she took a deep breath. Among my people there is a law older than memory. It is called the Oath of the Amazon. It binds us to those who save our lives. Once an Amazon is rescued, her destiny belongs to her savior until death. Ethan frowned slightly, trying to understand. You mean, you feel like you owe me something? Her eyes flashed. It is not a matter of debt. It is destiny. The chain of honor is unbroken. My life is no longer my own. By saving me, you have claimed it, even if you did not mean to. Ethan was silent for a long moment. Then he shook his head. Kalara, I don't believe in destiny. I believe in choice. I freed you so you could live your own life, not so you'd feel chained to me. She clenched her fists. You don't understand. To ignore the oath is to dishonor my people. Even if I never see them again, my spirit would carry the shame. He studied her, his eyes steady. And what do you want? Not what the oath demands, not what your people would say. What do you want? The question struck her like a blade. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. For a warrior raised only to obey tradition, the idea of choosing for herself was terrifying. She turned away, unable to answer. The days that followed were heavy with silence. Kalara trained in the cargo bay, swinging her blade through the air, striking against practice dummies Ethan had set up for her. Sweat ran down her skin, her movements sharp and fierce, yet her mind remained restless. Ethan watched sometimes from the doorway. He never interrupted, never judged. But one evening, as she ended her drills, he spoke. Kalara, I didn't ask you to bind yourself to me. I don't want a servant. But if your oath says you must walk beside me, then walk. Not as a slave, not as a weapon. Walk as a partner. She turned, surprised. Partner? Why not, he said. Two people working together, equal. Her heart tightened. Equal? Could an earthling truly believe himself equal to an Amazon warrior? Yet when she looked into his eyes, she saw no mockery, only truth. But fate did not give them time to settle. At the next trading station, as Ethan bartered for supplies, Kalara noticed the way others stared at them. Not with curiosity this time, but with calculation. Whispers passed quickly between merchants, and a shadow of unease spread across the hall. That evening, as they prepared to leave, Ethan received a warning from a dock worker. Word is out, traveler. There's a price on her head, the Amazon. Someone wants her back. Kalara stiffened. She already knew who it was. My enemies, she said quietly. Ethan frowned. Who? My clan was defeated by rivals. They would never let me walk free. To them I am both trophy and threat. If word spreads that I fight beside a human, they will not rest until they take me back. Then we'll be ready, Ethan said calmly. Kalara shook her head. You don't understand. They will send hunters, armies. You cannot face them. Ethan's voice did not rise, but his words were firm. If they come, they'll have to go through me. She stared at him in disbelief. He was human, fragile, untrained by her standards. Yet his courage burned brighter than steel. And for the first time she felt fear. Not for herself, but for him. The next day their fears became real. As the Odyssey Dawn left the station, 3 small ships appeared on the scanner, moving fast. Ethan tapped the controls, reading their signal. Not traders, hunters. Kalara's hand went to her blade. Then we fight. But Ethan shook his head. Not yet. If we fire first, we're criminals. Let's see what they want. The ships closed in, hailing them. A voice filled the cockpit, rough and arrogant. Earthling, hand over the Amazon and we'll let you keep your ship. Kalara snarled. Over my dead body. Ethan pressed the comm button, his voice steady. Not happening. Find another prize, the hunters laughed. Brave words from a fragile human. Do you really think you can protect her? Ethan didn't reply with threats. Instead, he began activating a series of switches on his console. Kalara watched as old Earth technology came to life. Hidden shields, decoy drones, and a stealth program built into the freighter's systems. You're not the only ones with tricks, Ethan muttered. The hunters fired. Blasts shook the freighter, but Ethan's shields held. He weaved through the asteroid field nearby, forcing the hunters to follow. Kalara braced herself, watching in awe as he guided the ship through narrow passages with calm precision. You fly like a warrior, she admitted. I fly like someone who really doesn't want to die, Ethan replied. At last, he released the decoy drones. They scattered, sending false signals across the hunters' scanners. Confused, the enemy ships split apart, chasing ghosts. Ethan seized the chance and drove the Odyssey Dawn into a hidden pocket of the asteroid field, shutting down power to hide their signal. Minutes passed like hours. Then the hunters' voices faded into silence. Ethan exhaled slowly. They're gone. For now. Kalara turned to him, her chest heavy with emotions she could no longer contain. You risked everything for me. Do you not see? This is why the oath binds me. My life is yours now. Ethan shook his head. No, Kalara. Your life is yours. I'll fight for you, yes. But not because some law says I must. Because I choose to. And maybe one day you'll see you can choose too. Her breath caught. His words cut deeper than any blade. For years she had lived only by duty, by law, by destiny written by others. But here was this fragile human, standing against hunters and clans alike, simply because he chose to. And for the first time, Kalara wondered if destiny was not a chain at all, but something she could shape with her own hands. That night, as she stood by the viewport, stars flowing endlessly before her, Kalara whispered to herself, perhaps my people were wrong. Perhaps freedom is not dishonor. Perhaps destiny can be rewritten. Her reflection in the glass looked back at her. Not the prisoner, not the bound Amazon, but something new. A warrior standing on the edge of change. And she knew then that whatever battles lay ahead, she would face them, not because the oath demanded it, but because her heart had already chosen. The Odyssey Dawn moved silently among the stars, a small freighter that seemed harmless to the untrained eye. But both Ethan and Kalara knew danger was always close. The bounty on the Amazon had not faded. If anything, it had grown stronger. The galaxy loved a challenge, and few challenges were greater than a human protecting an Amazon warrior. Kalara trained in the ship's small bay, her blade slicing through air with deadly precision. Every swing was a promise to herself, to Ethan, to the freedom she had claimed for her own. Yet her mind remained restless. The oath still bound her, though her heart now questioned whether it was a chain or a choice. Ethan entered, carrying tools and parts from the ship's engine room. He paused, studying her for a moment. You fight well, he said. Faster than any soldier I've seen. Kalara stopped mid-swing, glaring at him. And yet a human like you guides me through battles without swinging a blade. He smiled faintly. Strategy matters as much as strength. Sometimes more. Before Kalara could respond, alarms blared through the ship. Red lights flashed across the walls. Ethan's fingers danced across the controls, his calm returning instantly. They're here, he said simply. All 3 ships. No decoys this time. Kalara's heart clenched. She moved to her weapon, her body tense with anticipation. Then we fight. Ethan shook his head slightly. We survive first. We fight only if necessary. The enemy ships closed in, their engines roaring across space. Kalara recognized them now, mercenaries from her former clan's rivals, each one armed with weapons designed to hunt the deadliest warriors in the galaxy. They had come prepared for her, and now for Ethan too. The first shot struck the Odyssey Dawn, sending the ship twisting violently. Sparks flew along the walls as Kalara gripped the railing to steady herself. She had survived countless battles, but never like this. Inside a metal box hurtling through space, fighting an invisible enemy. Ethan activated the ship's shields, murmuring calculations under his breath. Keep low, he instructed. Follow my lead. Kalara obeyed, ducking as the ship dove through a nearby asteroid field. Rocks and debris flew past, each one a potential death if miscalculated. She noticed how Ethan predicted every turn, every trap, every blast. He was small, unarmed, and human. But he commanded the ship with skill that rivaled the greatest commanders she had ever faced. They were outnumbered 3-1, yet he maneuvered them flawlessly. Kalara felt a strange mix of awe and disbelief. Humans, she thought, may be weak in strength, but cleverness could be more powerful than muscle. One of the enemy ships broke formation and moved to flank them. Kalara raised her blade, the energy in her arms ready to strike if it boarded the freighter. But Ethan had other plans. Hold, he ordered. We don't need to board them. I have a better way. He activated a series of devices hidden along the hull. Small drones erupted from compartments, spinning and flashing with energy. They emitted signals that confused enemy sensors, making the Odyssey Dawn appear to multiply. Kalara's eyes widened as the hunters fired at ghosts, their shots missing entirely. They think there are multiple ships, she muttered. Ethan nodded. "We're turning their strength against them." Kalara watched in admiration as the freighter weaved, danced, and dodged through the asteroid field. The hunters became disoriented, and one by one they retreated into the void. But victory was not complete. The last ship, larger and heavily armed, approached silently, cloaked in shadow. Ethan's face grew serious. "This one will not be fooled by tricks." Kalara stepped forward. "Then we face it together." The final battle was fierce. The freighter shuddered under repeated attacks, and Kalara's heart raced as she prepared to defend it. Ethan navigated with skill and precision, but he was only human, and the ship's shields could only absorb so much. As the enemy attempted to board, Kalara leapt into action. Her blade moved with deadly grace, cutting through the intruders with precision. Each swing was a dance, each strike calculated. She moved faster than the eye could follow, yet her attacks were controlled. Never wasted. Ethan provided support in his own way, guiding the ship to optimal positions, using its systems to trap enemies, and occasionally throwing mechanical tools to distract attackers. Kalara noticed his calm even in the heat of combat. He was not fearless, he feared like all humans, but he controlled it. Minutes felt like hours. Sparks flew, metal bent, and the hum of energy filled the ship. Kalara realized something she had never considered before. She had fought countless battles alone, but with him, her strength multiplied. His mind, his courage, his calm strategy made her faster, sharper, stronger. Finally, the last intruder fell. Kalara stood, breathing heavily, her blade humming with residual energy. She looked at Ethan, who was sitting at the controls, sweat glistening on his forehead but smiling faintly. "You survived," she said, her voice a mixture of disbelief and respect. "So did you," he replied simply. They shared a moment of quiet triumph, a rare pause in the chaos of the galaxy. Kalara realized that she had fought not just for herself, but for him, and in doing so she had chosen her own path. In the aftermath, they rescued a small group of refugees trapped in the asteroid field by the hunters' attack. Kalara's heart softened as she led them to safety, seeing fear in their eyes and hope in their faces. Ethan worked alongside her, coordinating their escape and tending to minor injuries. For the first time, Kalara felt a sense of purpose beyond war and duty. She was no longer only a warrior or a prisoner of destiny. She was a protector, a guide, and perhaps a friend. That night, as the Odyssey dawn drifted through the quiet of space, Kalara stood by the viewport once more. The stars stretched endlessly before her, glittering like diamonds across the black canvas. She felt a strange peace, a balance between her past and the unknown future. Ethan approached, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You fought well today," he said softly, offering her a cup. She took it, her fingers brushing his. "You fought well, too," she admitted. He smiled. "Not without you." Kalara's heart clenched. The bond between them had grown stronger in the fires of battle. No oath could define it. No clan could claim it. It was something new, something of their own making. "You are stronger than I ever imagined," she whispered. "Not just in battle, but in spirit." Ethan shook his head, modest. "I'm just a human, not a warrior like you." Kalara laughed softly, a sound she had not heard from herself in years. "Perhaps not, but you are brave, clever, and unyielding. Enough to change the destiny of an Amazon." He looked at her, curiosity and warmth in his eyes. "And perhaps you've changed mine as well." As the stars stretched into infinity, Kalara realized something she had never allowed herself to feel. Hope. Hope for freedom, hope for choice, hope for a future she could shape with her own hands. The war of shadows was not over. The galaxy was vast, and enemies were still out there. But for the first time, Kalara did not feel alone. She had a companion, a guide, and perhaps something more, and in the quiet of the stars, she made a silent promise to herself. Whatever came next, she would face it not bound by oath or fear, but by choice, courage, and the strange, undeniable bond she shared with a human named Ethan Hale. The Odyssey dawn drifted silently through the velvet darkness of space. Stars glittered like distant fires, stretching endlessly in every direction. For Kalara, the Amazon warrior, this quiet was almost disorienting. After weeks of battles, near escapes, and the bond forming between her and Ethan, she could finally feel the weight of her own choice, the freedom she had never truly experienced. Ethan stood at the controls, adjusting the ship's course toward a peaceful trade hub on the edge of the sector. The tension from the recent battle still lingered in the air, but both of them felt an unusual calm. Kalara leaned against the viewport, her reflection mirroring her thoughts. A warrior, free, and yet no longer chained by tradition or fear. "You've changed," Ethan said softly, breaking the quiet. Kalara turned to him, raising an eyebrow. "I changed?" "Yes," he replied, his eyes steady. "When we first met, you were a fighter trapped by honor and oath. Now, you fight because you choose to. You protect because you care, not because someone told you to." Her chest tightened. He spoke truthfully. The oath of the Amazons had bound her to destiny, but with him she had learned to stand for herself. To fight for freedom, for justice, for choices she alone could make. She clenched her fists, thinking of all the battles she had endured, all the pain of being treated as a prize, a weapon, a commodity, and yet here she was beside a fragile human who had shown her courage, cleverness, and respect. Her pride swelled, not from victory in battle, but from the bond she had forged. "I never imagined a human could be so—" She paused, searching for the word, "strong." Ethan smiled faintly. "Strength isn't always about muscle, Kalara. Sometimes it's about heart, patience, and cleverness. Sometimes it's about standing up when others expect you to fall." She studied him, realizing that every decision he had made, every risk he had taken, had been guided by that same courage. He had protected her not out of obligation, but because he had chosen to. And that choice had changed her destiny. Their journey led them to the outskirts of the sector, where whispers of the Amazons' freedom had reached far and wide. Many viewed her as a prize to reclaim, and some ships lingered near trade hubs, watching, waiting for a chance to strike. But Kalara was no longer the frightened warrior she had once been. She had learned patience, observation, and strategy, and she had learned trust in herself and in Ethan. One evening, as the Odyssey Dawn approached a quiet planet, a new threat appeared on the scanners. A fleet of heavily armed ships, larger and more organized than any they had faced before. Kalara's heart tightened. These were no mere bounty hunters. They were the remnants of her old clan's enemies, determined to reclaim her as a weapon. Ethan studied the scanners, his calm mask firmly in place. "They want her," he said quietly. "But they'll have to go through both of us." Kalara gripped her blade. "Then we fight." But this time their battle would not be one of survival alone. It would be a declaration, a statement that Kalara was free, that destiny could be rewritten, and that humans and Amazons could stand together as equals. The first clash was violent. The enemy fleet struck with precision, expecting an easy victory. The Odyssey Dawn danced through space, shields absorbing the brunt of attacks, while Ethan maneuvered with clever, unpredictable tactics. Kalara moved alongside him, her sword flashing, cutting through enemy boarding teams with practiced skill. Every move they made complemented the other. Ethan's strategy, born of cleverness and foresight, guided Kalara to strike at the most critical points. Her strength and agility amplified his plans, creating a synergy that surprised even the enemies. For the first time, Kalara realized that a human's mind, combined with her warrior instincts, could challenge even the deadliest foes. The battle raged for hours. Ships exploded in silent bursts of fire and debris, scattering across the void. Yet through it all, the Odyssey Dawn survived, its crew growing stronger with each maneuver, each decision, each act of trust. Kalara's heart pounded not just with adrenaline, but with a sense of purpose she had never known before. When the final enemy ship attempted a direct strike, Ethan had already anticipated it. With careful precision, he led the ship into a narrow asteroid field, forcing the attackers to either retreat or risk destruction. Kalara's blade made the final boarding impossible, striking down any who tried to reach them. In a final flash of light, the enemy fleet scattered, defeated not by strength alone, but by cleverness, courage, and unity. After the battle, the Odyssey Dawn floated in silence, the stars reflecting in the calm of space. Kalara leaned against the viewport, feeling the hum of the ship beneath her feet. She had survived. They had survived, and she realized that the oath that once bound her now felt different. She had honored it not because she was forced to, but because she had chosen to. Ethan approached quietly, holding 2 cups of steaming coffee. "We did it," he said softly, offering her a cup. She took it, her fingers brushing his lightly. "Yes," she admitted. "Together," he smiled, eyes warm. "Not because of destiny, Not because of obligation, because we chose to. Kalara nodded, the weight of years of tradition lifting from her shoulders. She had once believed her life was pre-written, a chain of battles and duties she could never escape. Now she understood that strength lay not only in muscle but in choice. Freedom was not just absence of chains, it was the courage to decide your own path. For the first time in her life, Kalara felt true happiness. Not from victory or power, but from knowing she had chosen her destiny, and that beside her stood a human who had taught her the value of choice, trust, and partnership. As the Odyssey Dawn continued its journey through the stars, Kalara and Ethan found themselves speaking often, sharing stories, learning from each other, and laughing in moments of quiet peace. The galaxy watched, whispers spreading from system to system. People spoke not of a captured Amazon or a fragile human, but of a partnership that defied expectations, a human and a warrior standing side by side, equal in courage, equal in purpose. Kalara's past no longer defined her. The clans that had once claimed her honor now faded in importance. She was no longer a trophy, no longer bound by an ancient oath to follow blindly. Her destiny was her own, forged by battle, trust, and the bond she had chosen with Ethan. And for Ethan, the journey had changed him as well. He had begun as a quiet trader, underestimated by nearly everyone. Yet through courage, intelligence, and compassion, he had proven that even a human, small, fragile, and often overlooked, could shape the course of a warrior's life and challenge the galaxy's expectations. They were equals now. Partners not by law or tradition, but by choice and courage. Together they had rewritten destiny. Months later, as the Odyssey Dawn approached a peaceful colony world, Kalara stood at the viewport, gazing at the planet below. Ethan joined her, standing quietly beside her, his hand brushing hers. "You see that?" she asked softly.
"That world?"
"It doesn't know who we are. They have no idea what we've faced, no idea what's coming." Ethan nodded. "No, but maybe they don't need to. Maybe what matters is what we choose to do next, and I choose to explore, to protect, and to walk this path with you." Kalara's heart swelled. She smiled genuinely, a smile that had not come from duty or training but from hope. Hope for the future, for freedom, and for the life she had chosen to live. Her oath, once a chain, now felt like a promise she had made to herself. A promise to live, to choose and to fight not because she had to, but because she wanted to. And in the quiet of the stars, Kalara finally understood the truth that Ethan had shown her all along. Destiny was not written by others. It was written by the brave, the clever, the compassionate, and sometimes by humans. She turned to him, eyes bright. "Thank you, Ethan, for showing me a path I never believed could exist." He smiled, taking her hand gently. "No, Kalara. You showed me that together anything is possible." The Odyssey Dawn continued its journey, a small ship carrying two unlikely companions who had changed each other, and perhaps in some small way the galaxy itself. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, filled with challenges, discoveries, and adventure. And for Kalara, the Amazon warrior who had once been bound by fate, the path forward was clear. She would walk it not as a servant, not as a prisoner of tradition, but as a free woman, a warrior, and a partner, choosing every step, writing her own story, and forever changed by the courage of a human named Ethan Hale.